Hey everybody, my name's Craig. Welcome to my channel. Today is December 3rd, and this is 5 minutes a day. So clearly I took the weekend off. So today or yesterday or whatever, um, last time I talked about comparison, and I wanted to complete a thought about. So here we go. 5 minutes starts now. So the thing I was thinking about this weekend about comparison and evaluation is that what matters is how you do it, not necessarily that you do it. Make sure that you see things in a good light. Make sure that you go both ways. That you look to the good and to the bad, or to the more fortunate and the less fortunate. And then also to what was I thinking? And the other thing that I thought about was to make sure you know the context and the weight of the evaluation. Because if you're thinking about, do I like peas or do I like carrots? Well, it it matters to you what you like more and what you choose. It doesn't really matter to anyone else. And people who like carrots or like peas, it says nothing about them as a person. It says nothing about them and their uh, innate humanity. It says nothing about their eternal soul or the comparable thing, whatever that is, depending on your worldview. Um, and that's something we mess up a lot. When we look at things like racism or sexism, we look at something that's, uh, it's definitely more of a context, more weighty than peas or carrots or preference, but it doesn't tap into the deepest parts of who we are. I mean, there are important things about those things. You know, color of skin, race, ethnicity can kind of point to ethnicity things, can point to language, can point to some other important information about a person. That's why the colorblind or I don't see color is not good, because um, it assumes usually whiteness. It assumes a default that doesn't really exist, and it uh, whitewashes that person. It takes away something that is a part of them. The problem is, the context there of that it does matter, but then there's the weight of it, and the weight is how heavy that decision is, how heavy that judgment is. Again, when we're talking about peas or carrots, it's not weighty at all. Like, it doesn't matter. You choose carrots or you choose peas, big whoop. But when we're talking about things that, like, race likes, sex likes, who you choose or why you like certain people to date, or it's a little more weighty. But you can take it too far. You can say, well, I don't know, uh, like I prefer women to date instead of men. Uh, Something that's a part of me. But the interesting thing is, like, that's a more weighty than the other one, but it's not. It doesn't get to the point of changing my humanity. Whether I like women or men, or some of y'all might like both. Some of you might like neither. That doesn't change if you take it too far, like a lot of people do, and say that it's so weighty that it makes you a bad person if you like the wrong version. Then you're pushing that evaluation too far. Uh, I like, oddly enough, uh, the in the Christian tradition, the Bible talks about that pretty well, I think. Oddly enough, uh, in some places, in other places it goes weird. But one I'm not gonna quote verses because That's not what this is about. But one place it says, judge not less not you be judged. Kind of the same measure thing. If you use a shovel, they'll use a shovel. And so that is the kind of weighty, eternal, existential, the deepest weight of judgment. And then on another place it says, judge the fruit. That's more the instrumental. You judge their actions. You judge, what came out of their action. And I'm out of time. And I think that's a really important distinction that we all need to make when we're doing these evaluations, when we're doing these judgments, is to make sure that when you do these judgments, you put them in the right context. That, let's say race, that the color of their skin is a pointer to a set of probabilities around ethnicity or culture or some behaviors. It doesn't talk about value. It doesn't talk about deep intrinsic qualities. If you try to connect it to things like IQ, you're going to have a bad day because it's a misuse of a population statistic. Just because there might be tests, there might be some research that shows one thing, doesn't mean that the person in front of you falls exactly into that category, because there may be 1,000 scores and they average out to be this way or that way, but that doesn't mean that the person in front of you, that's a misuse of population statistics. And again, if you use the wrong context for a judgment, for an evaluation, it's going to lead you to the wrong place. And then if you take that wrong judgment and establish a ridiculous amount of weight to it and say, oh, well, because this one study said this, and I'm going to look at it in the wrong way and attribute, instead of just a potential of a possibility, a pointer toward a possibility, I'm going to say that it means the deepest value of this person is less than because a whole bunch of people took a test and it wasn't as good as another group of people, which is funny because in almost all those situations, the tests weren't properly normed anyway. So the differences on the test could be to systemic issues or to bad test design. So there are literally people right now, I'm going way over time, there are literally people right now that are framing entire belief systems, entire ideologies around improperly made tests given to wrong populations that show not as good results, and they don't address any of that. They're just like, oh, this is a way for me to discriminate. Again, they're using the wrong context and attributing a wrong value, a wrong weighting of a bad comparison, of a bad judgment. And almost always anyway, and I'll stop with this, almost always those bad judgments, the prejudices, goes back to the name, prejudgment. People have this view in their head that they need to justify, and so they'll go back to science and filter through and ignore the bad parts, ignore the things that don't let them make the conclusion they had in their head to begin with, whether they realize it or not. And that's probably the biggest downfall of discrimination and hate and bigotry, is the lack of self-awareness. So I've done 2. I'm almost at 10 minutes on this video now, so I guess I'm making up for the weekend. So anyway, I hope that makes some sense. I'm probably just rambling. It's 10 o'clock, so I'm sorry. I'm rambling. I hope that's helpful. And just to be completely clear, racism, sexism is stupid and bad. And I probably shouldn't use the word stupid, but it's ignorant. It's dumb. Another word I probably shouldn't use. Tells you how hard some of these things are when, and the worst part about it is the lack of self-awareness. They refuse to look on the inside to see how they might be hurting other people, and that's good to them. That's gross. Anyway, thank you for letting me ramble. I hope you enjoyed these videos. I find them helpful and cathartic and good to let me get things out. So if you like what you hear, like the video. If you want to talk about anything that I mentioned or ask questions, do it in the comments. If you want to see more, subscribe. Hit that notification if you're that cool. And I will see y'all later. Talk tomorrow. See ya. Peace.